Hello, this is Isabel, and I'm going to be teaching you guys all about intros. So, the goals of an intro are to contextualize, to pique the interest of the audience, and to give credit to the author or authors of your piece. Um, so, contextualization means letting the audience know the setting of your piece, so the time, the place, and the tone of your piece. And by tone, I mean how you want your audience to receive your piece. So, if you want them to laugh, then you should make your intro more funny. And if you want your audience to be more serious, then make your intro more full of facts and things like that, more emotional. And then you want to let your audience know around the time period that your piece is happening, usually. And then it's also helpful to let them know the place that it's happening, things like that. You can. You don't necessarily have to say all of those things for every single piece, but those are helpful. You definitely want to let them know some sort of setting. And then you want to let the audience know who your character is. So their name, the main character's name, definitely, their age, sometimes, and then their profession or dilemma, just some information about them just to provide some context. And then, of course, you need to let the audience know what issue or topic you're going to be talking about in your speech, um, just because obviously that's kind of the entire point of the intro. You pretty much use your intro to take a break from the piece and to kind of connect the dots for your audience about the message that you're trying to send them. And then, of course, you need to let them know the purpose of your piece and why you chose your piece. And this kind of goes along with agency. I think we're going to have a talk about agency soon, but it's basically just making sure that whatever piece you're doing, you understand the experiences of the character, and you're only portraying parts of the character or a character that you understand from your own life experiences. And a lot of judges prefer for you to let the audience know that you have experience talking about whatever sort of adversities or difficulties that your character is facing, just because that will um, that just lets everyone know that you really understand what your piece is about and that you're sharing a true to you story. Um, and then, of course, you need to make sure that your audience is interested. That's a huge part of the intro. A lot of times, the intro can make or break the piece. If the intro is boring and the teaser is boring and nothing in it like tells me like, "Hey, you should be listening," then it's really hard for an audience member to pay attention to the whole piece and to really be invested, which is what you want every time because you're sharing a story about yourself that is super important to you, and you want everyone to listen and to care about it. And then, of course, you want to give your author or authors credit. So, whoever wrote the scripts that you're using. All right, so what character is in the intro? You. That's the great thing about the intro. It's the only part of your piece where you get to be your authentic self because a lot of the times you're not going to be portraying like a character who's just like you. So you get to use your own voice, and that shows the judge who you are. And it's cool because they get to see, like, if you're doing an accent, you can do your regular voice, and it kind of shows your like range as an actor. And the reason that you are you in the intro is so that um, the audience knows that you are connected to your piece and you are sharing an experience that you really care about, your character's experience that you can relate to, and you want them to care about it, and you as yourself want them to care about it, not just the character that you're portraying. And it really lets the audience know that you aren't just doing your piece to win an award for acting, like you actually care about. I know I keep saying actually, but you actually care about the issues that you're speaking on. So when does the intro happen? The intro happens after your teaser and then before the rest of the piece. So your teaser is, I think it's like a minute and a half long. I'm not 100% sure. I think that the cutting video probably went over that. Yeah, but the teaser is basically just like a quick snippet at the very beginning of your piece, just to kind of get the audience's attention. You are your character in the teaser, and you kind of set the stage for the rest of the piece. And then the intro comes in, and then it contextualizes and all the stuff that I just said. So an intro is less than 100 words, so it's about a minute long. It's not super short, but because it needs to be long enough for you to not only include the author and the title of your piece, but all of the other things that I just talked about, the purpose of your piece and why everyone needs to care about your topic. All right, so before you get started on writing your intro, ask yourself some of these questions, or all of these questions. What is the point of your piece? Why do you care about your piece? Why should I, as an audience member, care about your piece? And what do you want me, as an audience member, to take away from your piece? So I think these are really helpful to ask yourself before you start writing your intro, and after you've written your intro, make sure that all of these questions get answered in it. Okay, in every intro, you want to have a claim, data, and backing, a warrant, and then your title and your author. And I will go in depth about these on the next couple slides, but if you want, you can pause and look at what I've highlighted. I've color coded them, so you can just like decode this example of an intro. And this intro is like pretty fancy, so yours doesn't have to sound this fancy. And I know you probably don't understand the context of the piece, but it's just kind of what an intro like structure looks like. All right, so step one is your hook / AGD, and I didn't include this on the slide before just because this is kind of like an extra piece, but the AGD stands for attention getting device, and you say this at the very beginning of your intro just to get the audience's attention, and you can either do an anecdote, a statistic, or a quote. This is just most commonly what people do, and as you watch more pieces, all of these like structural things I'm talking about, you don't always have to follow these exact rules like in the order. In the exact order, just because you might, like, as you do speech for longer, you might find like a way that you think works best for your piece. You have a lot of freedom with it, but this is great for just starting out. So then my example is, according to a study by Stanford University in 2019, more than 99.9% of teenagers are addicted to TikTok. So yeah, so this one uses a statistic, and that's pretty basic. A lot of people like to use statistics, but make sure that your statistic is meaningful. All right, so then step two is your claim. So what are you trying to convince your audience of? What do you think? So this is pretty much like kind of like your thesis. So an example is, this chronic dilemma has turned a vast majority of Gen Z's brains to mush, and it must be tackled immediately. So my claim is that 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 being addicted to TikTok is a bad thing that's affecting Generation Z, and it needs to end. All right, so then step three is your data and backing. So basically your evidence. Why is your claim true? Why should we believe you? What should we do about it? So this is kind of like a call to action as well as just providing evidence. Example, experts believe that if TikTok were to be deleted, then all test scores would increase by 50% in just 3 months. We need to speak up to abolish TikTok in order to save our future generations from imploding. So that basically, it's trying to grab your attention. Like, why should we believe you? You should believe me because experts believe that if it were deleted, then teenagers would be much smarter. It's a call to action. We need to speak up about it so that we can save future generations. Okay, and then step four is the warrant. So justify why your claim and backing or your evidence connects to the piece, and then how are the issue and your piece related. That's pretty much the exact same thing, but you just need to make sure you justify it. So example, as a high school student, this by the way, all of the examples go together, like they flow together as one intro, by the way. So as a high school student without the popular app, side note, this is where I start to describe the main character and the setting. So her age, background, she's a high school student. Her name is Debbie. She feels isolated and afraid. This is kind of setting the tone for the piece and the setting and the character. So that relates back to what I said in those previous slides. But yeah, so Debbie feels isolated and afraid. Her peers constantly make references to this mind-controlling demon that Debbie is unable to understand. This disparity eventually causes her to be completely exiled from the teenage community. Despite Debbie's adversities, she knows the truth. TikTok is the devil, and she will do all in her power to Stop the Clock by Addison Rae. So this last step is to give credit, so state the authors and the titles of your sources used in your piece. And what I did here was a thing that a lot of people in Interp love to do. You connect the last sentence of your intro to your title, so the title is Stop the Clock. You don't have to do that, but it's just something really fun I like to do, and I can help you guys with that when you start getting your pieces up if you'd like to do that. All right, so here are just some specifics with credit for different pieces. So with DI, HI, Duo, Duet, and Prose, since they are normally just one source, you will only have one source, so you'll just say at the end of your intro, you'll say The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, if The Hunger Games is the script you're using. And then with poem poetry, it's a little bit more complicated. So since these use multiple sources, usually you can name your piece whatever you like. So for example, this piece I said that the piece is about saving oceans. So I named the poet Bash the Trash and named the poetry Oceans. So poetry is a little bit more complicated, but you'll see as you go to more rounds. People like to do this really fancy one. You can read through it yourself. Um, uh, and they usually have a because statement at the very end, which you don't have to do, but a lot of people do it just because it kind of like ties everything back together to your topic. And we can help you through that if you decide to get up a poem. But with poetry, it's a lot more simple because people don't have all these different sources. But if you do forget your sources with poet, you can always do what I have listed here for poetry. Well, wait till that goes away. But you basically just say Oceans, a program by various authors. And that kind of just encompasses all of the different people in your piece. So yeah, so this is like the simple version of poetry. Or this is a simple version of poetry, but this is this translated to poetry. All right, so then some final notes. On your intro, you want to be creative. So think of like interesting connections that you can draw between your piece and then the real world and your topic that people may not have thought of before, because that'll really get people thinking during your piece and want to pay attention a lot more. Watch a lot of pieces for inspiration, because the more intros you see them, the better, the easier this will become. Writing an intro will become. And then an intro can sometimes make or break a piece. I think I already talked about that, but basically you don't want to forget about your intro. You want to make sure that your intro is super powerful, because a lot of the times judges will relate the rest of your piece to your intro and constantly be connecting the rest of your piece to your intro, trying to make sure that it makes sense, and it's kind of like a little roadmap for the rest of your piece, so definitely don't forget about it. And then memorize your intro. Intros always have to be memorized for every single event. Especially remember that for binder events, because you won't be able to look at your binder during the intro. I don't know if I already went over this, but you need to make sure that your feet are stationary. You are stationary during the entire intro. For every event, you put your arms down by your side if you're not holding a binder, and you can do some hand gestures, but your feet are in place. And then if you are holding a binder, you'll just hold it like this during your whole intro, and you want to be making eye contact with all the different audience members in your room during your intro, really trying to convince them of your argument. And I think that's everything. So thanks for watching. Bye.